We have learned so much more about neuroscience over the past 10 years, 12 years. And I think it really plays not only into the academics that schools are tasked with, but it also is impacting our knowledge about student behavior. And the Building Resilient Students in Schools helps to spread the message about what some of that neuroscience information is. And, whether teachers have heard it before or it's all brand new, I continue to hear this was a great refresher. This was material I had heard but had forgotten, or I explained it in a different way to teachers that they can take it and apply things in their classroom. So I think, we see a different student now in the classroom than we did 20 years ago. So I think we too have to change our approach with how we interact with students, how we discipline, how we build relationships with kids, and getting that neuroscience understanding and that psychology understanding is a great way to educate teachers and build relationships with students. It really does have the ability to change a culture in a building when students feel welcomed, when students feel seen and heard in a classroom. So it's also, of course, great modeling for, how teachers interact with students to how they interact with each other. And, so it sets the stage for a lot of opportunity to make a big impact socially, not just in the classroom, but the extension of the classroom, the school, taking it home, all of that.
Yeah. This is a huge topic because you're talking about school culture, classroom culture, student behavior, you know, whatever your behavior system is, all of those things. How are you breaking that down in your professional learning for teachers and other staff to digest it? And what's that process?
Yeah. I had done a lot of research myself when I went through my doctorate, and then I also participated in getting a neuroscience certification through Butler. So I give a little bit of research information on the neuroanatomy of the brain and the body, and then how that impacts student behavior. We go into the stress responses of the brain and body. And then also one of the big topics is neuroplasticity, that it's a positive and a negative. Students who grow up in a trauma-filled home, their brain is built on those trauma reactions in situations. And so they carry that forward. But the positive of that is that there's an opportunity to rewire the brain. The brain can change and learn new things, learn new responses. So we talk about that. We talk about the physiological impact for the rest of the body with the polyvagal theory. And then we really look at and move toward school-specific things such as behavior and discipline. What does that currently look like in the building? What things are going well? What things need to be changed? We can dive into student data as far as referrals to the office or, exclusion from the classroom. And we finish it out with how are we going to build resilience? All students come to us with some sort of adversity, whether it rises to the level of trauma or not. But building that resiliency piece is, it's life-changing. It can take them into their future when things don't go so well or they come in contact with a negative situation. How do they work through that? What is that going to look like? And I try to impress upon attendees that you're in a very unique situation. You are a guarantee for kids every day. And those kids come to you, and the way you show up for them can build resiliency, or it can keep keep the discipline and the behaviors coming. So it's really an adult choice how we move forward.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I love that you are building it in such a way that you're not just providing information. Because I think we've all sat through that at some time or another and then walked away like, so I know things now, and now what? So you're getting into the practical application as well, um, for buildings and for classrooms. Is that right? It would be looking at practices across both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In a general session, we talk broadly about things and how that looks. Attendees share about their specific buildings and what goes on and the practices that they implement. But then in working with specific schools or districts, we can really dive into um, their specific situation, what resources they have, um, and how they can be used to help support students and moving things forward. So again, we really do touch on um, the tiered system and putting broad supports in place at a tier 1 level, and then how can it look differently for those students who still tend to struggle with behavior and that kind of success in the classroom. So we level it up to tier 2 and then tier 3 if and when schools have those kinds of supports.
Yeah. Is this an elementary focused program, or is it a little broader than that?
It can be broader. I've done it with elementary, but I've also done it with middle school and high school.
And so what I'm hearing is they again have the option to come to ECESC for some kind of general training if folks want to send a couple of people, but you're also available to go specifically to them and consult with leadership and
Right.
make plans that are more specific to a district.
Yes. Yeah. Really creating that welcoming environment for any and all students. You know, it, and coming up with different ways of correcting behavior. Discipline isn't something that we want to do to kids, but it's something we want them to have. So being able to set up a culture and an environment where not only does it come from the adults, but also from their peers. So as they go forward, that there is a common social expectation about behavior.